In John 3:30, John the Baptist says this of Jesus. He says, "He must become greater, I must become less." Now, John's words here had a particular meaning for him. It was time for John's ministry to wind down as Jesus' ministry was ramping up. John had really done his job. He had prepared the way for Jesus. But there's also a truth here in what John says that goes well beyond his ministry. It's a truth that's really for all of us. And that truth is that there are a lot of things in us that need to fade, that need to give way to Jesus. There are just ways that we need to become less so that Jesus can become greater in us. We see this same idea reflected in Galatians 2:20. There the Apostle Paul writes this, "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me." Paul is really talking here about surrendering our lives to Christ and living for him. And as we surrender our lives more and more to Christ and grow spiritually, we should be decreasing and Christ should be increasing in us. And that's going to mean, first of all, letting go of everything in us that's inconsistent with Jesus, our old self with its sinful practices and ways. But it also means putting Jesus over every other thing in us and about us, because there are an awful lot of things that we can come to lean on and to cling to as sources of our identity, our value, and our confidence, things that should not have that place in our lives. Pride and ego, competence, accomplishments, experience, our gifts, our position. Now, many of these are good things, but we need to have Jesus as the main source of our identity, our value, our confidence, not these other things. So we need to decrease by letting go of our old selves, of anything in us that's just not consistent with Jesus, but also by finding our identity, our value, and our confidence in him, not in ourselves. But there's one more truth here that I don't want us to miss. This verse says that Jesus needs to become greater and we need to become lesser. And for some reason, oftentimes when people talk about this verse, their focus is almost solely on how we need to decrease. And that's one half of the equation. But we also should be focusing here on how we can seek to have Christ increase in us. Things like turning our focus more and more on him, seeking to grow spiritually in him and to know him more, seeking again to surrender to him, to give up those things that are inconsistent with him, and to find our value, our identity, and our confidence in him and not in ourselves or in any other thing. So this is definitely one of those cases where less is more. Less of us means more of Jesus, and that is a fantastic thing.